Hello Infiniteers, and welcome back to my Wall-E City toy box. Today we are going to begin hooking up the logic for this toy box, and we'll start with the first mission to find and repair Wall-E. This is a great way to motivate your players to explore your toy box world. And for those of you who are looking to build this toy box on your own system, or you just want to know how the logic for this mission works, so that you can do something similar in your own toy box, then you might like to know that I have logic diagrams for today's episode on my blog that will help you out. I'll put a link to that in the video description. You might find it helpful to follow along on the diagrams while you watch this video. Now, to save time, I have already placed some of the Creativitoys that we're going to need. Actually, I think just about all of them. So let me review what I've done so far, so that you can catch up. Alright, so I have placed a trigger area down over this beginning of the toy box here, over the start pad, with a logic gate out here. I have placed a loot chest, and a locator, and a collection pen, and these are all out of the Creativitoys drawer, okay, in the editor, like you see here. We also have an object generator, another locator and a radar marker, a logic gate, a action enforcer, a sound effect generator, and this is the one toy that's not out of the Creativitoys. It's out of Gameplay Toys. And then over here, we have a locator, we have a friendly wave generator, another radar marker, a collectible tracker, a text displayer, another logic gate, a dynamic trigger, and a replayer, and a logic gate. These three go along with this locator, and I'll explain that in a minute. We also have a level starter and a button, and I've placed a temporary gear collectible out here. Again, I'll get to all these toys as we go along, and you might be thinking there's a lot of them, but don't worry, the logic for this is not difficult. It's just going to take a little time to hook it up, and I'll show you step by step what you have to do. Now, the idea here is that when we enter the toy box and we leave that trigger area down there, we're going to put Wall-E in one of 6 possible locations in the toy box. And each of those locations will be represented by a locator, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And to go along with each of those locations, we have the 3 toys that I showed you: the dynamic trigger, the replayer, and a logic gate. So over here is another location. Over at this pigeon coop, I have a locator, and I have a dynamic trigger and a replayer and a logic gate. Over here on top of the B&L transit station, we have another locator and the same 3 toys over here on this rooftop. On top of the Ultra Store, we have another locator and the same 3 toys. On top of this trash pile, we have another locator, and over here we have the same 3 toys to go along with that. And then over here we have another locator on top of that building, and with that we have the same 3 toys again. Okay? And so we have 6 possible places where we could put Wall-E. And if you want to add more, you can do that, up to 10 of them. I wouldn't do much more than 10 because of the replayers and what we're going to do with those, but at any rate. And then the only other thing I've done is I came over to my friendly wave generator and I connected it up with a new locator connection to each of the locators for the 6 places where Wall-E could appear. And I configured the wave because it takes a while to scroll through that long list, and I configured it with Wall-E, the Wall-E costume. Okay, So that's everything that I have done. And it takes a little bit of time to place all those things, so that's why I did that ahead of time. Okay, so we'll begin over here at the beginning. And the first thing the player is going to need in order to find Wall-E is a pack to help them out, Buzz Lightyear's jetpack. And we're going to use this loot chest to give that to the player. But again, the loot chest will not give that by default. If you look through the list of loot, you will not find that toy. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to use the same trick I showed you in Toy Box Tutorials episode 140 for how to add lots of different kinds of loot to a loot chest. So we'll come into the properties for this. We'll configure the loot. And we're going to set this to the economy. And if you want to know why we're doing that, go look at Toy Box Tutorials episode 140. It's not that this is going to give the player that loot, because we're not using an economy system. It's just to prevent a little glitch. And then under the properties, we're going to use all the same defaults. Okay. Now on the loot chest, a new logic connection. When this is opened, we're going to invoke this object generator, and under packs we're going to select Buzz Lightyear's jetpack. Okay, and on the object generator we'll do a new locator connection, and we want that to appear here when they open the chest. Okay, so there we go. Now the player will have Buzz Lightyear's jetpack that they can get around. And again, you might be wondering, well, they can get to that through the Packs and Tools menu. Why are we doing that? Well, for one, it lets them know that they need to use that. And second, I'm planning to go in to the another creative toy that we're going to drop down in a later episode and prevent them from being able to use the Packs and Tools menu to use anything they already have. So they're going to have to find what they need to get through this toy box. Okay, we'll come back to the rest of those toys in a little bit. Let's go up here next. And let's configure the friendly wave generator. Not the wave, we already did that. Properties. We're going to put Wall-E at a random locator. Again, we've already connected this up to the 6 locators we need. Take the generation delay to 0, and under generated friend options, set the behavior to sleep. This way he'll be laying on the ground. It'll look like he's hurt, and he won't be wandering around. And then we'll need a radar marker to bring the player to him, help them find him. So on the radar marker, we'll do a new actor connection. Connect that up to our friendly wave generator. And on the properties for this, beacon type will be a yellow arrow. And actually, we'll use the yellow exclamation point. Because Wall-E is asking, he's kind of our mission giver. He's asking for help. And then the beacon location will be the connected actor. All right. So we're going to use the trigger area that I placed over top of the start pad to kick that off. And you might be wondering, why aren't you using the level starter? Well, you could, except we got a lot to do in this toy box to build it. And so there's times when I'm going to come into this toy box and I want to work on it, or I want to work on the next one, the Axiom, and I don't want to play through the mission. So what you can do is when you enter the toy box and you load it up, and your player starts here on the pad, what you can do is immediately go into Spark mode, move the player outside of that, and put them out here. And this way, they can get out of that trigger area without kicking off the logic for that mission. And then they can go do whatever they need to do. So that's why I'm doing this here. It's a convenience for while I'm still building the toy box and working on it. Okay, so on this, we're going to do a new logic connection. Not when entered, when exited by player any. So when the player loads up the toy box and they leave that, then we're going to come over and generate the wave for our friendly wave generator, which will put Wally at one of those 6 locations. The second thing we need to do is turn on that radar marker so that the player knows he's out there somewhere. They can use that to try to help find him. So a new logic connection on the trigger area when exited by player any will go turn on the radar marker. Activate. Okay. And then we're only going to want to do this one time. So the last thing we'll do on that trigger area is turn it off. And so we'll do a new logic connection on it when exited by player any. And again, I would love to be able to turn around and come back to itself, but I can't. So that's why we're going to use this logic gate out here. So we'll input into that. And then on output from the gate, come back to the trigger area and deactivate it. All right, so that'll put Wally out in the toy box somewhere at one of those 6 locations. And we don't know which one, which is why we need our dynamic trigger. So, I think the first thing we will do, though, when the player goes and travels to that point, whether it's this one or one of the other 5, at that point we want to put 3 gear collectibles nearby for the player to grab the parts that will fix Wall-E. To do that, we're going to use the replayer. So let's hook up the replayers next. So on each of the 6 replayers, take the playback interval to 0. Do the same thing for the replayer at each of the other 5 sites. And then the toy that the replayer is going to put down is the Gears collectible out of the gameplay toys. All right. And one of the things I forgot to do at the end of the last episode is there's one more ledge I wanted to place. So I'm going to pick this up, put it down. And I wanted to put a ledge over on the side of this building over here. And I believe, yeah, it was on this. It's 4 of those buildings pieces high. We were going to put it here like that. Because I want to put one of the collectibles on that for this place. All right, so let me pick this up again, put it back. And let me show you where I placed all the collectibles. So we'll come out of the editor here. We'll step on our replayer to get the menu in the lower right corner. On my Wii U, I press B, the one on the bottom, to start recording. Then I got to step off to get back into the editor. And now let me get my screen grabs here so I remember where I placed all of these. All right, so the locator is over here. This is where Wall-E is going to appear. I want to put a gear collectible over here. I want to put one on this ledge over here. And we'll put another one down on the ground over here. Okay. And we will exit. And then we'll step on our replayer again to get that menu in the lower right. I will press B to stop recording and A to clear. Be sure you only press B and A one time each. If you clear that replayer multiple times, you'll corrupt the replayer and any other replayers you've already done. All right, so that's the first replayer. The next one we will do is this one. So again, go into the properties, take the playback interval to 0. I won't do that for the other ones, just to save a little time here. but I'm going to step on this one, start recording. And for the collectibles on this one, and I kind of want it to seem like they fell off of Wall-E when he was damaged. So we're going to place one down over here. We'll place one down over here. And for the other one, we can place it down over this way. Like right there. Okay. And then again, step on the replayer. Stop recording, A to clear. Next will be the B&L Transit Station. Again, set the property on the replayer to 0. I won't do that here just to save a little time. Step on, start recording, step off. And now for this one, since Wall-E is up here, let's drop one down inside of here. We'll drop one down here. And let's put the other one over here. Okay. Stop recording, clear. Next, we'll do the Ultra Store. Again, set the property on the replayer to 0. Step on, begin recording, step off. And this time, let's put one down over here. Put another one maybe over here. And we don't want to put one down here and force them to walk all the way around the building. But we could put one down over here because they won't have to go too far to get back to that pipe climb. Excuse me. All right. Stop recording, clear. For the next one, that would be this one. Start recording, A to clear. Had to wait for that little loading symbol to finish. But we'll put one down here. Put one over on top of this building. And we could put one down over here. All right. Stop recording, clear. Next up we got that one. Oops, I thought I hit clear. I did hit clear. That is a problem. I hope I didn't just corrupt my replayers. Yeah, that's not good. I'm pressing playback and clear and none of those are working. I'm curious now if I just mess this up. What happens if we do a playback here? Well, that one's okay. Something weird happened with that replayer. Let's go ahead and just redo it. should probably make sure the other replayers are okay, but just for purposes of this video, I don't want to linger on this too long. Okay. So record, step off, back into the editor, drop one here, drop one over here, drop one over there. Stop recording, clear. There it goes. I must have done something different. Didn't realize it. Alright, and I think this is the last one. I'll double check that in a moment. Alright, begin recording. For this one, we'll drop one down here. We'll put one over here. And we'll put one nearby on top of the building. Alright, stop recording, clear. Okay, so that's one location, second location, third over there, fourth over there, fifth over there, sixth over here. Okay, so now we have all of our collectibles. Alright, so we've placed Wall-E at one of those 6 locations. And the problem is we don't know which one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use these 3 toys to kind of help us determine that. So I'm going to show you how to hook it up for these. You can do the same thing for the other 3 at each of the other locations. Okay? So what you're going to do is come over to the dynamic trigger, do a new locator connection. Connect that up to the locator for that location. Make that same connection for this one to that locator, for this one to that locator, and so on at each of the other locations. Okay? And then for each of those dynamic triggers, you're going to set the properties on them the same way. So the target is going to be the locator. Trigger distance is going to be 4. And the way I have placed these is that if Wall-E appears in one of these locations, the player is not likely to go explore the other locations. Okay? So if he's coming over here, it's not likely the player is going to go up on top of that building, or over here, or over there. And so each of these are kind of out of the way from the others. And so I don't have to worry if the player goes to one of those other locations. If they do, it's going to kick off the, the dynamic trigger for that location. But by separating them out, I'm really not too worried about that, because the player will follow the radar marker, unless they're completely chaotic, and then there's no hope for them. Alright, so when the player arrives over here, if Wall-E happened to be put at this location and the player comes here, he'll enter the range around that locator specified by the dynamic trigger. And when he does, there's a bunch of things we want to do. Okay? Most of them are going to be taken care of by this logic gate so that we don't have to duplicate all of those connections on every dynamic trigger. So the first thing we want to do is on the dynamic trigger, when this is entered by player any, we're going to input into this logic gate. Okay? There's only one of these. So this is not the logic gate that goes with 3 toys. This is going to be common to all of them. So the dynamic trigger over there will link to this one. The one over there will link to this logic gate. And then this logic gate's going to do the bulk of the work. But there's 2 other things that this needs to do that are specific to this location. The first is to play back the replayer for that location. So on here, we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We will do a playback on the replayer for this location. Okay, so you're going to make that same connection for this dynamic trigger to that replayer, for that dynamic trigger to that replayer, and so on. And then the last thing this will need to do is we need to open this logic gate. And the purpose for this logic gate is because when the player, or when the game puts Wall-E at one of these locations, we don't know which one it is, all right? And we don't know which of the replayers are going to get played back. But when this is all done, we're going to want to clear the one that got played back. And so this is what this gate is going to help us do. So what we want to do is on our level starter, we want to do a new logic connection on catalyze. We want to come to each of the 6 logic gates for these locations and close it. Okay? So we're going to do it with that one. Make the same connection from here to close this gate. From the level starter over to this one to close that gate. And to close the other 3. So that level starter should close all 6 logic gates. And when you've made that connection, come over to your button, do a new logic connection when pressed, start the level starter. This way you don't have to exit the toy box to do this, and then just come and push the button, and that will close all of those logic gates, all right, without you having to leave the level. And so when the player enters the location where Wall-E is at, and they enter the range of that dynamic trigger, you want to do a new location or new logic connection when entered by player any. You want to open the gate for that location. All of them are going to be closed, but when the player comes to that location, wherever Wall-E happens to be, and he enters this radius, we're going to play back the replayer for that one, and we're going to open its corresponding logic gate so that later on we'll know which one we can close, because later on we're going to just try to input into all of those gates. They're all closed except for one, and so that'll be the gate that we end up clearing, or the replayer we end up clearing. And you'll see that when we finish hooking up this gate a little bit later. Okay? So basically 3 connections off of the dynamic trigger for each of the 6 locations. The first, input into here. The second, play back this. The third, open the logic gate for that location. Okay. And as I said, this one will do the bulk of the work because the connections, the rest of the connections for each location are the same. And so on this logic gate, we're going to do several things. First, a new logic connection on output. We're going to come over to our text displayer, and under the missions category, we're going to have Wall-E say, "Will you help me?" All right. And on the properties for this, we'll set the text duration to 4, text style to banner. So wherever Wall-E happens to be, when the player finds him, he's going to say, "Will you help me?" And he'll end up displaying the parts at that location that the player needs to go get. The next thing this logic gate needs to do is a new logic connection on output. We want to come and deactivate the radar marker because the player has already arrived at whatever location Wall-E is at. The next thing we want to do is a new logic connection on output. We're going to come over to each of the dynamic triggers and turn them off because we only want to do this one time. And since we don't know which one inputted into the gate, you need to make this same connection for all of the dynamic triggers at the other locations. You're going to want to turn them off as well. Make that same connection for the other 4 out there. Next thing this gate will do is a new logic connection on output. Oh, actually, that's it. Let me cancel out of that. Sorry. Okay. So at that point, we've turned off the radar marker. We've generated the gears. We've displayed a little text. And we've turned off the dynamic triggers at every location. And then we wait for the player to collect all the gears. And that's what the collectible tracker here is going to be for. So on the collectible tracker, we'll go into the properties. And for the collectible type, we're going to look for the gear collectible. Gears collectible. And we want to show those on the radar. And by the way, we can delete this one because we're now done with that. Okay, so on the collectible tracker then, this will kick off the next part of the mission. And what we want to do is when the player gets all of the collectibles, we want them to take Wall-E back over to his home and put him in the collection pen over there. So what we're going to do is a new logic connection. When the final collectible is collected, we'll come over to the text displayer, and under the defense category, we'll say deliver friends to the base. So that lets the player know they need to take Wall-E and take him over there and put him in the pen. Okay? And then we want to turn on a radar marker over there. So when the final collectible is collected, we'll come over here and we will turn on this radar marker. And for this marker, we'll do a new locator connection. We'll connect it up to this locator. And we'll put that locator right here in the pen. And on the properties for this radar marker, beacon type will be a yellow ring. Beacon location will be the locator. Okay. All right, and then we have a logic gate that's sitting here, and this is the one that's we're going to use to clean everything up. Okay, so on our level starter, come over here. We'll do a new logic connection on catalyze. We will close this gate to begin with, just in case the player does some silly things and throws stuff into there before the mission is ready to be completed. So we will close that gate. So let's say the player goes over to Wall-E. We generate the collectibles, but they decide to grab Wall-E and throw him in over there early. And we don't want to break the game if they decide to do that. Okay, so we'll close this gate till we're ready. And by the way, on the properties for this, make sure remove counted actor is off in case they do that. Okay, which means that once they've collected all the collectibles, then we can open that logic gate. So when the final collectible is collected, come over here and open that logic gate, because now they can take him over to the base. And if they've already done that, they just need to come over here, pick him up, jump out of the pen, come back in, and they're done. Okay. And that is it for the logic over there. And then we wait for them to deliver Wall-E to the pen. And so on the collection pen, we'll do a new logic connection. When a friend is entered, we will attempt to input into this logic gate. And on output from the gate, we're going to do a few things. So on output, we can turn off this radar marker. On output from the gate, we'll come over and defeat the wave. So this will take WAL-E out of the toy box, save memory. We're actually going to, next time, generate WAL-E in a new location standing over here, like you saw in the playthrough video. So that's another reason why we want to take him out. And then on the logic gate, new logic connection, on output, we want to come over to our action enforcer and have all the players celebrate. On the logic gate, new logic connection, on output, come over to the sound effect generator, and I like to play musical fanfare. That's my standard end of mission sound. And make sure under the properties you turn off 3D sound at speaker or locator. Okay, and then the last thing this needs to do is the cleanup. So from here we'll do a new logic connection on output. You're going to come over to the logic gate for this location over here, which is this one. And you're going to input, okay? Make that same connection from the logic gate over here at the collection pen to this one, and attempt to input into this one. Make the same connection for this logic gate, and the one over there, and the one over there, and the one over there. And again, only one of those is going to be open. And then on the logic gate for each of those locations, you'll do a new logic connection on output, clear the replayer. So make that same connection between the logic gate and the replayer there, and all those other locations. And then on the replayer, do a new logic connection. When this is cleared, close the gate. So this only gets cleared one time. Make that same connection from the replayer to the logic gate at each of the other locations. Okay? And do all of that, and then you're done. You can save your toy box, and then you can test it out by first pushing the button here again to make sure all of the gates are closed, including the one you just hooked that up to over here. And then come step inside your trigger area. Make sure you save your toy box again before you do that. And then step inside the trigger area and step out in order to begin testing it, and just make sure it works. And if it doesn't, you probably missed a connection somewhere. So you can review the logic diagram on my blog to see what you might have missed, or watch the video again. And if I missed anything, I'll leave a comment, or I'll mention it next time. So that's it for the logic for finding and repairing WAL-E. Next time, we'll implement the logic for the next quest, where we follow the laser dot to the site where Eve's ship lands. Until then, I want to thank you for watching. Before you go, please hit the like button and leave a comment to let me know what you think of this mission and the logic for it. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel and you like my toy box designs, be sure to subscribe. That's all for me today. Take care.